92% of executive women have imposter syndrome. The biggest thing is not so much about what other people are thinking. It's about how you feel and think about yourself. Right? They see your confidence and they see you as an expert in whatever it is that you're sharing with them.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Healthy Rebels, where it is my mission to empower you with all of the tools to take care of yourself. And today is no different, and I am so excited. This is a little bit different, but I am telling you, you are going to want to listen to this. I have Jessica Papineau, who is the founder of a company, CSJ, that is a leading styling company for high-performing female entrepreneurs. So these are women who just want to just look their best and, of course, be their best, which don't we all? So welcome, Jessica. I am so excited. So I would like
Thank
to
you.
begin. I want to begin for you to be explaining the segue, I guess, between why a stylist is on a show about health and wellness.
Well, you're in the space that I lean into. So many of the women that I serve are in the health and wellness space, are keynote speakers or thought leaders and mindset coaches, and a lot of people are really like not totally understanding why I'm not on podcasts about fashion. And so for me, the styling piece and the clothing and really helping women to feel more beautiful, it's about stepping into their power. So really the clothing is, that's the gift. That's the gift that I was born with is, helping women to, discover themselves on the outside and feel wonderful. But really that's the vehicle for me. That's the vehicle of how I help women to elevate their confidence, right? To really be able to look at their bodies and see what's beautiful by highlighting with clothing all of their best features. And so that's really what I'm doing is I'm helping women to fully step into their power so that they can get in complete alignment with the woman that they were designed to be so that they can fully share their gifts with the world and be the best versions of themselves.
So in other words, it doesn't have to be just healthy, organic, and thinking about all the stuff that I'm always talking about. Like we can also look good and take care of ourselves on the outside, and these two actually should be together.
So it's very interesting, Bonni. I struggled a good part of my life feeling as though I was superficial for loving fashion and beauty. And so now, it's interesting. It took me until I was about 40 to have the aha realization of the connection between the two. And for me, it all has to do with how I grew up. So I lived in the backwoods of Maine. My parents were hippies. We were doing organic before organic was a thing. I mean, we were all about health. So it basically, my parents were hippies. We were living off the land. Our fruits and vegetables were harvested in the fall and canned, and that was our food source for the winter.
Wow.
And just, imagine this. Okay, so this fashionista version of me as a little girl, right? I am in this shack in the woods, right? No electricity, no running water. We had an outhouse, no television, no telephone. And my job in the morning was to take out a pee potty that we had peed in all night. And I know I'm getting real here. But what I spent my time doing was going in my closet And my clothing was from Salvation Army. My parents were not about fashion, obviously. They were about, you put clothes on your body for warmth, and it was a necessity. It had
It
nothing to do
was
with beauty, right?
it was utility, which I think
It was,
people still do
yes,
that. Just
yes. And
about utility. Hmm.
exactly. And so what I was doing at that time, I didn't see it that way. And it's so interesting because you would think I would, because that's how my parents were. This is how I knew I was born to do this. So I would take out the pieces of clothing that were from Salvation Army, and I would make outfits out of them. I would put them on. I mean, I was like 4 years old, and I vividly, these are some of my first memories. And I put
Wow.
the clothes on, and I'd make outfits, and I would pretend. And because there was no television or anything, I had to have this wild imagination. And so that was my fun, magical place, until I realized that my parents were not really liking this behavior, because they wanted me to be interested in what they were doing, right? I had to go weed the garden and do all these things out of necessity, right? And so I learned as I got older that it was perhaps superficial, and maybe that's why they didn't want me doing it. And I don't think that was their intention at all, but that's what these were the beliefs that I was starting to believe. And
Hmm.
until I realized and really truly leaned in to fashion, and when I was 16, Bonni, I moved to Canada, actually, to Winnipeg, Manitoba, where my dad was living with my grandmother. And I moved there because I wanted electricity and a hair dryer, but I also desired to work in fashion. And so I learned the power in it, and how it really helped other women to feel amazing. And I loved making people feel good. And so when I started in this store, I worked, it was actually a woman's plus size clothing store. I was
Oh,
16 years
wow.
old and walked into this store, and I did not know that I had been hired at a woman's plus size clothing store. The manager, I didn't have any experience in retail. I just was born with this gift, and she hired me on the spot. And I was this tall, lanky, scrawny 16-year-old kid, and I had my own body image issues. I hated being skinny. But I didn't know that grown women that were mature and that were like in these power positions, that they actually had insecurities too. And so I learned this very quickly. Women started walking into the store, and they were executive women. This was women suiting back in 1993. And they'd come in, and literally, when I would ask how I could help them, they'd put their hand up and they'd say, "I'm just looking. I don't want your help. I'm just looking."
Yeah, yeah, of course.
And it would hurt my feelings, and I wanted to help them. And I know I'm going on and on. Do you want to ask me any more questions? And I'll tell my story. I'll tell my story, but you ask me if you have a question. Stop me.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, it's way beyond being superficial. It
Yeah.
is how you carry yourself. Well, the way I think about getting dressed, and of course, I have shared with you before this that I actually started out in fashion myself. Uh,
Yes.
but when I think about getting dressed, and I don't know about all the women you work with, I think about the message I'm communicating
Yeah.
and wanting to have people listen to what I am saying. So like you dress in a way that it's almost like a part of your message, right? So it's like not distracting from
Yeah.
what's coming out of your voice. So in a way, like you were saying at the beginning of the podcast, like women stepping into their power, to
Yeah.
me, that is like spot on. Like, I want to dress so I am not thinking about this, right? And I'm
Mhm.
able to fully express myself
Yeah.
and be heard,
Yes. And I think
right?
that's, it's interesting for women, because one thing I have learned is the problem that I'm solving for women actually is the feeling of unworthiness.
Hmm.
And It took me a long time to understand that because I am working with high performing women. I'm working with some women that are, making multi seven figures and standing on stages and inspiring, masses of people. But they have insecurities, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
what I find is a lot of women they'll invest in themselves when it comes to health and wellness, for example. They'll invest in themselves when it comes to, like a coach or therapist or that kind of thing. It's really, we've come such a long way. And now we're talking, there's so much talk now about priming our days, even like the intentionality around getting up in the morning and moving our body, for health. And what are we putting in our body, eating the right things, and the messaging that we're putting in, with listening to the
Oh,
right
yeah.
podcast, right? Listening to things that are going to, be good for our mind and our soul and all the things. But then I find there's not as much intentionality around how we put ourselves together, right? And in the investment in self there, and almost this feeling of like unworthiness of investing in self because of the idea, like you mentioned, Bonni, of this feeling of, oh, it's superficial. I better not do that,
Right.
right?
Like it doesn't matter. Somehow it shouldn't be that important to me. But
Yes.
but at the same time, I do want to share in preparation for today,
Yeah.
I actually put together some kind of compelling statistics, which I
Oh,
mean, so we know we are communicating. They say it takes 7 seconds. I'm sure you know this number,
yeah.
that someone makes an impression of you. So you
Amen.
don't have a chance to talk someone out of that entire black outfit, which maybe could be okay once in a while, but you'll tell me. But the point is,
Mhm.
you don't have a chance to talk yourself out of that. And then
Yeah.
they say 93% of all communication, if you're trying to just be, let's say, a salesperson, or you're giving a great message on stage, 93% is nonverbal. And
Yeah.
53% of that, or something, 55 is on your appearance. Are
Yeah.
you kidding? And only 7% is on what you're saying. Really? And
Okay.
then,
Oh,
how is
sorry.
that? Is that crazy? Oh, no, no. And then this is one I thought was interesting, that it's
Yeah.
like 1/10 of a second people will decide if you're trustworthy or not. And
Yeah.
so this is huge. This is the money, man. You know what I mean? For
Yeah.
anything you want in life, right?
Yes.
This is important. Like you got to have the whole package, is my thought. I'm huge,
Yeah.
obviously, into the whole wellness part, but this is part of
Yeah.
that package.
You're so right. And I have some other interesting statistics for you. And
Okay, I
I
love.
hope I get these numbers correct because I'm doing it off the cuff here. But I've done some research on 92% of executive women have imposter syndrome.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
95% of women don't love their bodies. And I had one more percentage, but I can't remember it at the moment. But it's just very it's very interesting. So, and I want to tell you this one story that I had started to tell you before because I think it'll really resonate with your listeners and they'll kind of get a deeper understanding for what we're talking about. But one thing that I know after working with hundreds and thousands of women over the course of 25 plus years being in this business and working with this type of woman is that when she feels beautiful, like it's not just about when other people are looking at her and just her physical, that is something, and people do. Image is everything, and what people think about you is their reality, and it becomes reality, right? But the biggest thing is not so much about what other people are thinking, it's about how you feel and think about yourself, right? So when you look in the mirror to leave for the day, to go into the office, and you look at yourself and you go, oh my gosh, I feel and look beautiful. I feel amazing. That's when you can truly go out there and exude the energy and have a frequency of energy when you walk in a room that just attracts, right? And people listen to what you have to say because they get that feeling from you. They see your confidence and they see you as an expert in whatever it is that you're sharing with them, because not only of the way you're appearing and looking to them as the expert, but how you're conveying and the energy that you're bringing because you feel beautiful.
Oh, you hit the nail on the head, because I think when we're feeling more insecure, you know what we do? Yap, yap, yap. Like we have to talk about all this stuff, as opposed to when we think about the most successful, confident people, it's more listening, right? And you just have because you don't have to talk yourself up or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that this is huge. So how do you handle someone who says, "Oh, well, I'm sure you get this. Well, when I lose the 30 pounds or when this or whatever," as opposed to in embracing and loving what you are right now. Because I just will mention, side note, just for what I do, because I do work a lot with weight loss. You cannot punish yourself into losing weight. So dressing and embracing yourself, whatever you are, is, I mean, I think huge. Would you just,
Yes, because I think a big
add on
part of
that?
it is how important it is to show up every day, the intentionality of showing up. And I always say, get up, suit up, and show up. And if we're not taking that self care as to how we appear and how we look, then we're really not showing up in a way that we even desire to be seen. And I'd love to give you.
Mm,
I want to give you the story of when I was 16, because
yeah.
this is when it all became very clear to me. And I will say, as I got older, there was a period of time where I kind of ignored that was my calling, and I came back to it a little bit later on in my life. I wish that I would have continued to lean in at that younger age, but didn't.
Well,
Um, but when I was 16, and these women were coming into the store, and they'd walk in, and I'd see them as so powerful because they were executive women, right? They were, that I felt a little intimidation, right? And I'd ask them how I could help them, and like I mentioned, they would say no. And I couldn't understand the no. I couldn't understand that they were thinking, this 16-year-old skinny kid, how's she going to dress my plus size body, right? And so they would go around and pull all these clothes off the shelves kind of frantically, right? Go in the fitting room, come out a couple times, and I'd see them put articles of clothing over their bodies. Like I'd see them first look in the mirror if they had something fitted on, look in the mirror, and their eyes would go right to that area they didn't like, whether it be their tummy area or their backside or whatever. And I'd watch their body language, and it looked so different than when I saw them walking in looking confident. I'd see them look in the mirror, their eyes would go to those areas, and they would look defeated. And then they'd take a big sweater, a big jacket or something, and put it over their bodies so you couldn't even see their shape. And I thought to myself, and with my superpower being my imagination from how I grew up, I would imagine what outfits I would put on them. They weren't letting me dress them, but in my mind, I was dressing these women. And after I had been there for about a month's time, I thought to myself, women aren't allowing me to help them, and that's why I'm here. I'm going to have to change how I'm approaching things. And so this woman came in and did the same thing, put her hand up at me and said, I don't need any help. Went around the store, did the same thing I'd seen all those other women do, left a pile of clothes in the fitting room, and she went to leave. And I said, excuse me. And she kept walking, and I said, excuse me. And I said it a little louder, and I like embarrassed myself. And she turns
Mhm.
around and she said, yes. And I said, I know that you said you didn't want my help. but clearly you had a purpose for coming. Like you came all the way to the furthest mall, and this was the furthest store in the mall. And I said, you must have had a reason for coming, but I see that it didn't seem to work out for you today. And I said, at this point, what do you have to lose? Like, give me a try. And she goes, all right, fine. I don't think this is going to work, but okay, kid, I'll give you a shot. So introduces herself, Kathy. I will never forget Kathy. So Kathy comes back in the store, and I go around and I gather all the pieces for her that I know are going to look amazing. She goes in the fitting room. She comes out, and I had her put on these fitted navy blue trouser pants, and it was a kind of a monochromatic look, and this navy kind of more fitted like cami kind of top. And she comes out, and she looks in the mirror, and I see her. She's like, her eyes are going to her tummy. And I said, okay, just wait, Kathy. And I tuck the top in. And then I take this long, like duster sweater, those were really big back in the early 90s. And I put it on. She goes, I can't tuck in my top. And I said, Kathy, just wait. And I give her a belt. I put the belt on, and then I put a necklace on her. And I took a scarf. It was a long scarf, and I just had it drape down the front of the outfit. And I'm standing in front of her, and I just kind of moved, and I looked at her looking at herself in the mirror, and she was wearing something that it showed her shape. It skimmed her body. She wasn't wearing a big sweater over top of the whole thing. Her top was tucked in, and you could see that she had a fuller shape, but her waist came in just perfectly. And I watched her eyes, they shifted. She looked down, and then she looked up, and her eyes locked at her own eyes and filled with tears. And she turned towards me, and she said, I never thought this was possible. I actually feel beautiful for the first time. I've never felt this way before. You skinny, scrawny kid, I don't know how you did this, but I feel incredible. And that was it for me. That's when I knew. And so I've seen this so many times before. I even had a woman here yesterday in my studio in her 70s, and she was slim, and she put the top on and pushed it down over her tummy and said, oh, I have this big belly, I have to cover it up. And when I see women doing the covering up, it's like they're not allowing themselves to be seen. Right.
Right.
And so these women that are high performing, right? They desire to be the best version of themselves every area of their life. Like they want to be the best mom. They want to be successful in their work. They want their relationships to be great. They put intentionality into date night and, all the things, right? But they're covering up themselves. And in doing that, right, they're pushing. It's like a push. They're maybe operating at 80%. When other people are looking at them going, oh, they're the high performer. But they don't feel that way. They feel a push. But when they can really feel beautiful and feel amazing, it becomes more of this pull. It's really incredible. And this is why I do what I do and why I love it. I get to
Wow.
see the transformation.
That is amazing story. And I mean, the emotion when someone realizes the possibility of what they can be. So I can only just imagine, and I know this is what you work with, but just talking about how this impacts every single area of their life and relationships and everything else. And yes, what I do and taking care of themselves, because you
Yeah.
have seen this. So why don't you tell a little bit about how this is like I'm going to say the ripple effect.
I would say, well, let me share with you first how I discovered who I serve in the deepest way. So I realized after, many or years of being in business, the type of woman that I could transform, that I could really help make significant changes, and that I could help her very quickly change and close that gap between where she was and where she truly desired to be. She was the high performer because the high performer is the woman, like I was mentioning, that wants to be best version in every area, and she will invest in some things. So what I've found is if she's the woman that is really working on herself, with her, mindset, or working with a health coach, trying her best to move her body, exercise, have great health, that sort of thing. And then I begin working with her. The work that I do with her just deepens. And I find it amplifies the work that she's doing with her other coaches, for example. Uh, I notice oftentimes, because you had mentioned, and I didn't quite answer your question, Bonni. Oftentimes women will say to me when they first reach out to me, is I was waiting until I lost the weight
Yes. Mm-hmm.
before I reached out. And like you mentioned, when we're shaming ourselves into doing
Not going to
something,
work.
it's not going to work. And I
Mm-mm.
see many women too that they have like all these different sizes in their closet. And it's actually usually a stack of jeans. And some of them are from like 20 years ago. And they're thinking, I am going to fit into those jeans one day. And what they're doing is nothing's going to change. All they're doing is shaming.
Right.
They're trying to shame themselves into fitting into something.
I just think about the energy of, I always tell people to get rid of the clothes that is staring you in the closet that doesn't fit you. What is that saying to you every day? Every
Yeah.
day. It's like this negative affirmation. Like
Yeah.
I'm not that person. I'm not that, whatever. I'm not good
Yeah.
enough the way I am. It is. So I think, yes, we don't have to wait. I
We don't
think,
have to wait to lose the weight. We don't have to wait to get the job promotion to invest in
mhm,
ourselves. We deserve to invest in ourselves now. And what I'm seeing is when these transformations happen pretty quickly, and always, even if a woman is working with me, desires to lose weight and hasn't hired the health coach yet, or hasn't even, has tried diets and different things in the past and has failed at them, or sometimes even gained weight, and they reach out, what I find is within about 2 weeks, she begins to lose weight. And it's interesting because I act, and I always know this. I don't say anything from the start, but I always, because I carry my own inventory of clothing, because I'm all
mhm.
about, fabric and creating this core wardrobe of items that fit the body in such a way that it highlights everything, and we can build this core wardrobe and then build off of it. But I'm always really intentional about what I first suggest for her to purchase with me, because I want to make sure it can easily be altered, or she could lose a little bit and it will still fit nicely, because it always happens. So within a couple weeks, she's usually saying, "Oh, I know when I got these jeans. Remember I said they did feel a little bit tight and you encouraged me to get them? They're feeling a little loose in the waist." And I'll say, "Have you lost a little weight?" "Oh, I don't know. It's only been a couple of weeks." And they've always lost a little bit of weight. And then after about a month, it's even more. I have one woman, that has worked with me now for 8 months and has lost 30 pounds. Now, she hadn't even been weighing herself, and she noticed
So
the clothes were fitting differently.
so to me, this is something I talk about all the time with people. I just have to interject here, but it
Yeah.
is incredible that you are seeing this. And it's about, I actually wrote a whole chapter in my book on this, and it's called acceptance. Because the irony of this whole thing is when you take off the whip and you just accept what is and you say, I'm beautiful now,
Yeah.
that's when you lose the 30 pounds. Thank you.
It
It's
is.
crazy.
But see, I asked her what she changed, like what's different. And there were a couple things. I love the psychology of people. Like I love
No, it's
asking the questions.
crazy. Yeah,
And
I want to hear.
so she said, okay, a couple things. Number one was that she started to feel better about herself and how she looked, and her husband became more sexually attracted to her. And
Mm.
then she started to like view herself differently because he was even more attracted to her. It kind of amplified her even feeling even better. And she said she'd catch herself looking in a reflection, like walking by a store, seeing her reflection and going, oh, this is fitted, but damn, I look good. Like, look at my butt. It's like, and so her and her husband were having more sex. So that's
Mm.
one thing that happened.
There you
She
go. Less
said,
food, more.
yeah, she said she didn't realize it, but she was going to like, her friends' houses on the weekend or having a dinner party, and she found she wasn't drinking as much. And she didn't
Mm.
even notice it until I asked her the question. And then she said, and I guess, you know what? I've been making healthier choices. In what I'm putting in my body. So I didn't even really think about it. And it was because she was feeling good. She was
You're at I
feeling
mean,
good.
I think about, what caused, to me, the biggest example that has happened in the past years is let's just talk COVID, okay? Because of that high cortisol. I mean, that's half of the reason, not just the amount of food that people ate,
Yeah.
but it was because not having that confidence like you have, with giving people, right? The cortisol. It's crazy
Yeah.
because what happens when you don't feel good and you're feeling that angst?
Mhm.
You're gonna pacify it some way, food, alcohol, whatever.
Yeah. And so she
So,
just became more in tune with self. And here's the other thing that she reported back to me, because she started making more money at work. And she
mm,
also, yeah, because she has a side hustle too that she's kind of leaning more into with speaking and coaching. But she's in the financial world. Like she works with like money wealth management, and in that business and in the office she works in, a lot of men there. And she said she would sit in the conference room and they'd have meetings, and she said no one would ever ask her opinion. She's like, all the men are talking and it's like I'm not even there, and she's
invisible.
invisible. And then she said, that started to change. And I said, why do you think that is? She goes, well, I started showing up in these outfits that I felt really good in. And she said, I wasn't even doing like the basic black suit with the white shirt under it anymore. She said, I started to do the things you told me, like wear a pretty floral blouse and dark jeans in my heels. And she said, and I'd sit at in the conference room, and the men, not that they like, there wasn't like sexual vibes. It wasn't like they were like checking me out, but I noticed that they kind of were looking more towards me. And then they started to ask me my opinion. And I said, that's so interesting. And then she said to me, she said, this whole time I thought it was because they were ignoring me and they didn't care what I had to say. And she said, and then I realized it's because I wanted to be invisible.
This is so huge what you just said. I mean, like I said, to me, you get dressed so that you can have your power, your voice
Yeah.
heard. Like, anyone that is listening to this, like right there, to me, that is like the golden nugget. It's
Yeah.
like you know, I mean,
But
that's
it's so interesting because we want to be seen, but then we're scared to be seen. So I know I'm such
yes.
a storyteller, but I have to tell you this other story. This is a younger.
No,
Do we have time?
stories are great. We have
Okay.
time.
Okay.
Stories are great.
So this woman she's recently going through a divorce. I haven't worked with her for the last couple months, but this was about 3 months ago that this happened. She recently divorced. Her husband had stepped out on her. Like he was with another woman and she found out. The baby was 10 months old and she had two other children under the age of 5. This woman was a high level executive, but she felt so small. And
Of course.
she was so just ashamed of her body. You know, she wasn't feeling good in her own skin. And we started working together, and she was so ready to make a change. She really wanted to, and she listened to what I told her to do. And it made her uncomfortable, and she did it anyway. And what shifted was I started to have her dress in things that were a little more fitted. I had her tuck her top in like I did with Kathy way back when. She got some belts from me. We did earrings and necklaces, and she just really started to like treat herself and feel more feminine. And she was going away to this conference, and we had been working together for maybe, I don't know, a month or so. And I had pushed her to buy a dress from me that it was floral and it hugged her right at the waist. And it had long sleeves. It was very classy, but you could see her shape in it. And it also had the wow factor. It was a dress where you walk in a room and people turn their heads, right? Because it was bright. And I said, that dress that you just got, I want you to wear to the conference. And she goes, oh, Jessica, I don't know. I do my uniform look. I like to wear my trouser pants. I wear this little top with it. And then I'll put a blazer over and wear my loafers. And that's what I like to do. And I said, let's be curious. Let's try this out. This is going to be a test for you. And I'll call her Jennifer. I don't want to call out her name here. So
Okay.
Jennifer listens to me. She does it. She sends me an email when she gets back. She said, I know we have our call tomorrow, but I wanted to write you this email tonight while it's fresh in my mind. She said, I did what you told me. I put on the dress. I was so uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable. I felt like I looked good when I looked in the mirror, but I was just terrified to walk into that conference room. And so I did what you told me. I settled into it. I did it anyway. And in doing it anyway, it made me think about why. And she said it was because I didn't want people looking at me. I didn't feel good in my body. I didn't feel that I was deserving of having other people look at me and thinking that I was pretty. And she said, I walked in the room and the heads turned and looked at me, women and men. It was one of those kinds of dresses, right? And it was appropriate for where she, for being at a conference, but it was a little bit more like she stood out in the crowd. And she said, and they looked at me and I felt uncomfortable. And I knew they were all looking at me, and I knew why. I knew it was because I really showed up like looking good. And she said, I just had to sit and marinate in that a little bit, like that they were looking at me. And she said, during the lunch break, people were coming over to me. They were asking me about things with the business, and they were wanted my advice on certain things. And I was sharing that with them. And she said, by the end of it, I felt really comfortable. I really liked it. Like, I even made a couple friends when I was there, like at this conference. And she said that had never happened to me before. And she said, I went back to the office the next day with this whole renewed sense of, I'm going to make a difference here with my clients and my customers. Like people want to hear what I have to say. And she said it changed her paycheck. So she was in sales. And
Wow.
over time, it started to change her paycheck. She started to make more money. And that wasn't her intention, but it happened because what happens is people start to get attracted to that energy that you're giving off.
So it's kind of, I'm thinking two things like imposter syndrome solution,
Mhm.
and fake it till you make it kind of thing. I don't know, right? Something like that
In a
in a
way,
way.
yes, because we're very comfortable staying comfortable.
Sure.
But I I like to in my life, and I think this is why the other reason why I enjoy what I do so much is I love to be in the uncomfortable because that's where the magic is. That's where the power is. That's where real change and innovation happens. And why are we on this earth to begin with? Like to just do the
Oh,
same
yeah.
thing over and over again and not learn anything. I don't care what age you are. We're constantly growing and learning when we try new things and when we get uncomfortable. And whenever I feel uncomfortable about doing something, like I remember the first podcast I went on and I was so nervous. My heart's beating out of my chest. I'm sweating. I'm like, oh, does anyone want to hear what I have to say? I knew that that was my indication that I had to do it because
Right. Hmm.
now, I mean, I go on probably 3 podcasts a week because I know that I have something to share with others that will make a difference and an impact in their lives. And I think that's really what it's all about.
No, that is awesome. And again, it's like everywhere in life, but like in your personal relationships, obviously, professional relationships, and taking care of yourself.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
but 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 think it starts with, right, you know, you can't, like we always say, you can't give to anyone else what you don't give to yourself. So how do you expect someone's going to listen to you when you're obviously not even doing, kicking it up a notch with yourself, perhaps, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think as women, we have this idea we grow up, in a society and with our moms and grandmothers that are like caregive, like take it. You put yourself last, right? As the
Yes.
caregiver.
Uh-huh.
And then we grow up believing that if we care for ourselves, that we're being selfish. But it's interesting how our the people around us can get the best from us when we're whole, right? So when, you know, our husband is seeing that we feel beautiful, they're more attracted to us, then they're getting more sex and they're happy. Our children, our children is it's not what we um it's not what we tell them or what even necessarily what we're doing for them. It's what they see us doing. So when our children see us caring for ourselves, when our children see us doing things that scare us or that make us uncomfortable and see us grow and try new things, then they see the possibility of them doing it for themselves. And so that's
I love
caregiving.
that. I have to stop you right there, because what you just said, I think, it is really brilliant, because uh, what you communicate non-verbally by your actions and how you handle stress, what you say to yourself in the mirror. Like I said, there's no F word. There is the other F word in my house, but the F word, FAT, we're not, no one, I was never allowed to say that. Like I would never say that in front. I raised, twin girls, but I have to say, this also makes me think back when they were, like toddlers, and I wore like a ripped, stretched out t-shirt, but they looked gorgeous. Like they had like matching outfits and all that. I'm like, no one's looking at me at all. I'm just showing up. All right, listen,
Right?
because you work, I think this is an important topic, honestly, because you are working with women who we have been trained to be, uh, our self-worth is more about caregiving outside of ourselves. And
Yeah.
so I think that's another level, not just feeling superficial, but
Yeah.
also in some ways, yeah, a little selfish to buy those friggin' fancy, awesome shoes. Thank you. Or whatever. Which I have to say, we recently had a hurricane here. We're both in Florida, and before it was coming, I did push the trigger on these fantastic shoes, because I figured, I mean, if I have to go through this hurricane, I'm going to look good.
Yeah, I love that. I love it.
And you know what? I don't care what anyone says. It made me feel good when they came and they fit perfect.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
like it was definitely better than like a therapy session. Absolutely. Yes.
Oh, that's great.
No, this is, I think this is again way more just to bring this around full circle to the
Yes.
beginning, that just any more concluding thoughts about the fact that this is not this is self-care, this is
Yeah.
self-empowerment, but the more you give here, you're going to
Yeah.
be able to give to everyone else.
Yes. So
Like
I have
what good can
I
you be playing small, right?
exactly. So I have a gift to give your audience.
Okay. Awesome.
So, you know
Hmm.
how we talked about waiting to lose the weight or waiting until the job promotion? I
Yes.
encourage every woman that is listening or watching today, if she has any curiosity about our conversation today and what I'm speaking of with the investing in self when it comes to your outward appearance, I encourage her, are you, whoever's listening, to take the
Mhm.
action to book a freestyling call with me, to talk further about this and how perhaps I could give some insights and give you some help, with your current state of where your wardrobe is and where you desire for it to go. And I love doing these calls because oftentimes I find that women won't reach out because they feel a little intimidated, like, and I don't know if I deserve this, but this is a free call, and it's by Zoom. And I will really dive in and ask questions and get to know a little bit about you and how I can give you some value on the call and really help you put a plan together for, like, let's get your wardrobe in shape. And I'll also share a little bit about how you can work with me and even just give you some tips on that call. So I believe we provided you with a link, Bonni, that
Yeah,
has.
so it'll be in the description. It'll be in
Yeah.
the description below, but you had me at free. Are you kidding? No, no, that sounds honestly, it's a lot of value though. I mean, this to me, this is important. You want to be very successful, but it's literally
Yeah.
it's having the whole picture.
Yeah.
You want to bring it to the table, the A game. You got to bring everything to the table. Life is too short to regret wearing bad clothes
Agreed.
or wearing cover-ups, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
or wait, right? I
Hmm.
don't know. You have any final sentiments on this?
Um, no, I believe that all women are deserving of putting articles of clothing on their body that highlight the best parts of them and that they feel amazing in. And it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, and it doesn't matter what part of your lifestyle the item is for. I believe even if you are at home on a Saturday and you're just hanging out and maybe you're by yourself, you wake up in the morning, get yourself ready, put on an amazing athleisure outfit that's cute, that you look at yourself and you go, oh, I'm cute. Like, I can go to the store in this and I look good and I feel good. And I think every woman is deserving of that. And I think that when we put that intentionality there, it really sets us up for success in our lives. And it allows us, and gives us permission to experience true joy, when we take the action to invest in ourselves in that way and feel great. It makes all aspects of our life better.
Well, I think this is hugely important, and I couldn't agree more because I think it can be the first step to everything else.
Yeah.
Taking care of yourself,
Yes.
right?
Exactly.
So I think it is time. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I feel like I could talk about this for hours longer, but
Can I share where people can find me? Because I give
oh,
I
absolutely.
give
Yes.
tons of I social media it can be, wonderful. It's a great way to, find people and market and do all these things. It takes a lot of time, but I love to give people really tactical, like actionable things that they can do at home in their wardrobes now. Even if they are not in a place where they want to work with me or can work with me right now. I am at the Jessica Papineau on Instagram. That's actually my favorite place to play is Instagram, but I'm on all the platforms. We are Customized Styling by Jessica on Facebook. We have YouTube, which I believe is also Customized Styling by Jessica. It's my name as well, Jessica Papineau for LinkedIn. And then we also on our website have some free resources. And those that are listening may wonder, like, how do I work with you? We have a styling app, and we basically have 3 different ways that women can work with us. One of them is called Sapphire. This is our first tier. It's our membership program, basically. Sapphire is basically the digital course that I created called Simplify and Elevate. It's how to set your wardrobe up for success by eliminating pieces that are no longer serving you, and how to strategically add and create outfits in your wardrobe that align with your lifestyle and where your life is headed. So we have that digital course, which is housed within an app. We have another tier called the Emerald tier, and this is where we have all kinds of amazing fashion resources. You also do get the digital course there and a community where you can connect with other high-performing women. So it's similar to a mastermind where we do tons of collaborating and women meet outside of this space. And they also have me coming on, doing it with them. So doing some styling with them and diving deeper into the modules and lessons of the course that I have. And then we have a diamond membership. And this is like mind blowing. So the diamond membership, you get all of those things. Plus you also get your own personal lookbook and virtual closet. So I make
Yeah, you
women's
showed me
outfits
that.
for
That's
them. I know,
amazing.
it's so fun. It's like, can you imagine on your phone, you open up your phone and every article of clothing and accessories are all in one centralized place, and it's everything that you love. None of the other stuff is in there. You've gotten rid of that. And then you have a section that's all of your different looks that line up with your lifestyle. It makes it easy to pack. It's just so much fun. It takes all the guesswork out and saves you a ton of time.
I I love it. Well, I can see how there's many, many ways people can work with you. And
Mm.
so I would say for those of you who just struggle and like have like 5 things that you try on in the morning and nothing looks good and you're tossing things all over, which takes a lot of energy out of your day, this is fantastic.
Yes. Well, I really appreciate, Bonni, you having me on and allowing me to share with your listeners and who's watching. And I can't wait to have you come and speak in my community and share all of your value, because all of my women are really, it's like every area of their life, they desire this growth and positive change. And that's why I love connecting with amazing women like yourself that are making deep impact for others and for women in this world.
Well, thank you, Jessica. And yes, we will. We're going to have this discussion again. We will have a part 2 at some point.
That sounds wonderful. We'll give more tips on part 2. I have all kinds of goodies up my sleeve.
I am sure. Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.